Hello everybody, and welcome to Hitting Home with myself, Mike Montague, and Arif Khan, and here we are in our nice polished new digs here at Rogers Studio.
Definitely want to thank Rogers, obviously. Thanks
sure.
for having us back,
Yeah.
Rogers. Certainly appreciate it. We had a great first season.
We did.
We learned a lot. We had a lot of fun.
And we're going to bring some of that knowledge forward and have a little more fun, hopefully, in season 2 of the show. But I really am impressed with these digs here. It looks good, and hopefully we can up the ante a little bit with our nice professional backdrop.
Absolutely. Well, it certainly puts the pressure on to give to deliver a high caliber show, good with good solid material and stuff that you're talking about at home, which is really what we want to do.
Exactly. And how'd your summer go, Arif? It's last time we sat in these chairs was about 3 months ago.
A lot has changed, Mike.
It has, eh?
A ton has changed, but I'm
Excellent.
excited. And you know what? For those of you who are interested, hopefully you got a chance to catch us on our podcast, which Joe will have up on the screen for you.
That's been fun. And that's something Arif and I have been doing all summer. We figured when we went into hiatus at the end of the spring until now, we just couldn't keep our mouths shut. So we had to do something. So we started the podcast, the Hitting Home podcast.
Us keep our mouths shut. That's kind of funny.
That Hitting Home podcast, though. Well, we've been having fun with that. And there's a whole archive of podcasts, and they're available out there. We'll talk more towards the end of the show about where you can go to listen to the Hitting Home podcast.
But I think this show is going to be really interesting coming up, especially this one today, because you and I, we had a good, long, hard discussion, and we said, you know what, we were maybe a little bit too soft, right?
A little too soft?
Time to step it up a little bit more matter of fact, right? And
I think so.
And obviously, we had great guests.
And we had some great topics and that, but I think the determination was made, let's focus in on real estate to a greater degree rather than the broader surrounding issues around real estate. There's so much happening right within the real estate and finance market.
You know what? The headlines in the news are just giving us so much to work with, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to get right into it, actually. Well, and I think one of the things that really caught us both off guard, Mike, is our first topic, and that's really who's buying today and what are they buying. And you showed me this article. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to argue it still. I'm not 100% sure I believe the article or I believe you. I'm still, I don't want to say I'm stuck because I'm not stuck, but I believe that there's value behind when I look at the global marketplace and when I look at what the trends are globally, I still think there's value behind where my position was before.
Okay.
But Joe, if you don't mind, let's bring that up.
This. Yeah.
Well, here, the headline is really, it's an article in Huffington Post. Thank you very much, Huffington Post. And it says, younger Canadians not interested in raising families in condos. And you know what? True.
There's a blend.
And it's not Canadian.
No.
Right?
Well, I think we had talked on earlier shows. I had made a point of an observation spending some time in Toronto at the number of younger families, pushing strollers and living in the downtown. And the number of people buying into the condo experience is up tremendously.
Absolutely.
But I think what the survey points out when the question's asked, where would you prefer to live? They're not living in
not
the
where
condos
are you living, not what are you doing, but if you had your way.
It's not an emotional preference, but it's a financial limitation. I
so
mean,
let's talk about a couple of buzzwords.
And because, again, a lot of what they're talking about is they still, that younger millennial generation does have a preference for the suburbs and the nice little court with the pool in the backyard and the lawn and the back deck and everything else.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly.
But here's the thing. The fact of the matter is that all urban planning trends, every municipality that is of consequence, if you will, a significant sized municipality, is going towards this terminology called smart living, smart growth.
Yes.
You look at the city of Toronto; they're playing a huge catch-up game right now themselves. But again, the bigger you are, the
translates
less
into higher
agile you can be. Certainly, the city of Barrie is doing it as well, though, and they're talking about building condos, multi-use unit residential, where every community or every neighborhood, though, has a central park or a parkette, has a village square, has amenity space, recreational space, and you will see the single mom or the single dad or the working family pushing their stroller with their children and taking their kids, and it won't necessarily be in their own backyard.
But that's a different element from the downtown Barrie or downtown Toronto condo, which is the 50-story vertical ice cube tray.
But I'm still willing to argue the point.
Still communities and neighborhoods, but higher density housing.
I'm still willing to argue the point. Canada is a newer country. We're a younger country. We're also a much smaller country by population and a much more vast country by actual square kilometers.
The number of people per square kilometer when you break down is quite low.
But if you look at where we are 50 years down the road or 100 years down the road, you would look to Europe or you would look to a populace like anywhere in Asia, Hong Kong, wherever it might be. And people are adapting to living in multi-unit or living in closer quarters.
Well, it's an economic requirement. You want to live close to where you need to be to work.
Right.
And so, unless you're a farmer or, doing some sort of a job that's not geographically specific, demanding that you be within a city, then you're going to make that move out. But most people, even a lot of the people that are moving to Barrie right now, are still relying on the GTA for their income.
Yeah. So let's how many have given up the dream of owning a detached home? So I think really that was the topic. I mean, and Vancouver, by the way, these numbers are shifting. We'll get into another article down the road where they're seeing the trends. I mean, the glut of inventory right now.
Vancouver, I'd like to leave out of the picture for the time being because they're in quite an adjustment phase right now.
Yeah.
And what's happening there is not reflective of what's happening here to any great degree. It's something to keep an eye on because it's something that could also happen here in the latter term.
Sure, but let's talk about some trends and some habits. And the trends and the habits really would be that whether it's a millennial or not, people are telecommuting more.
Yes.
That is one of the facts.
Yeah.
I mean,
working from home.
Businesses have recognized that it doesn't make sense to lease out the whole floor on Bay Street of the 77th floor on whatever the building might be. It's not efficient when you have technology, when you've got wireless access
or computer screen,
to
you can sit in front of it at home.
And the other thing that a lot of businesses are realizing is quality of life. An employee will gladly take a slight pay decrease for the quality of life increase to be able to work from home, not commute 3 hours a day.
They're cutting expenses elsewhere.
Oh, listen,
the wear and tear on a vehicle, the time, the value you put on your time. If you're spending 2 hours to downtown Toronto, 2 hours back every day, quantify that. That's a big chunk of your life you're giving away traveling to and from work. And if you can do that from home and maybe take 5-10% off the top for your pay, I think, a lot of people would look at that and say it's worth the trade. Yeah,
so I think there's two things at play really in this article. One is the fact that people still dream about the Canadian dream, which is why everybody left the other heavily populated
I was refreshed to see that article
to
and learn
live in a detached or whatever. And we're not going to see the end of the detached built form. No. We're going to see our subdivision builders, our volume builders, and our custom builders are still going to build the dream for Canadians who can afford it. When we come up in the next segment, though, which we're just about a minute away from going to break, when we come up in the next segment, we're going to talk about, well, how is that attainable?
Yeah, where's the money coming from?
And where's the money coming and where's that all from? But I do think that there's two things to juggle. One, people still have the dream, but two, for those who are coming to terms with or accepting the fact that condo dwelling is a matter of fact, they're also looking for other things to improve their quality of life.
Yes.
Accessibility to mass transit, accessibility to recreation centers, accessibility to good quality restaurants in the surrounding area, a walkable community.
Yes.
So I think there is a balance.
And Barrie has a unique opportunity here as we've been focused on infill building for the past few years. And with the annexation lands in the south, we've got an opportunity to build communities just as you're talking about.
So it'll be interesting because we just had an election here in Barrie, and a lot of the candidates were saying, I'm going to change the way that we build the city, we're going to build smart growth. I personally disagree because I know for the last 8 years, certainly, our planners have been planting those seeds about smart growth. When we come back, though, from the break, we're going to talk about how do you get into that dream, how do you get into the dream of home ownership, and how is it attainable. We'll be right back.
And welcome back to Hitting Home. I'm Mike Montague here with Arif Khan, and before the break we were just talking about who is buying and who's still looking, and people are still buying. And I was looking at the statistics for the previous month, and the numbers are good compared to last year. We're kind of on par with what was happening last year. We're not in the midst of any amazing boom, but at the same time there's no real downturn underway. So
what is the statistics telling you? Is it saying pay attention to the headlines or ignore the headlines?
I've always said ignore the headlines. I sat in this studio in 2011 on another show where I was being read to headlines that were saying the market's going to crash within the next year or two, and I defended the fact that no, we're going to continue on. people still need a place to live, and people still want to own a home. So
you know what's funny? I'm sorry, I'm laughing.
Where the money is coming from. Where's the laugh?
I'm laughing because I think if you go back into the archives in our show, whether it's April, May, June, something like that, I started predicting, and listen, I'm not looking to be the guru of anything. I started predicting, though, how absolutely foolish our headlines are, and what our government is doing, what our legislators are doing, what our regulators are doing.
Fear that's instilled. Headlines need to be sensational.
Manufacturing a recession. That is exactly what's going on.
The one that stands out for me not long ago was, we're in the midst of housing boom, X number of homes sell. But how long will it last?
Right.
The media's got to add that doom and gloom piece in there, because that's why people pick up the paper or stop what they're doing and pay attention to the headline. That's their business.
If you try hard enough, you can do it. I mean, you know,
But we're quite different. Housing as an investment is quite different from the stock
market.
Well,
we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that in the next segment, where we talk about, hey, listen, drop the doom and gloom, stay focused, stay optimistic, because there's an opportunity around every corner. But the fact of the matter is, right now, we're going to talk about, well, how are people getting in? What's happening?
Where is the money coming from?
Let me just give everybody a real quick refresher, okay? The refresher is this. According to a Bank of Montreal report that came out in the spring, it said that from December 31st, 2017 to January 1st, 2018, 7 out of 10 applicants who would have qualified in a regular financial institution on the 31st of 2017, December, no longer qualified. January 1st, 2018.
Yeah.
And that was because of, what was that? Why? Well, that is these newly imposed stress tests and all these additional rules and constraints that have been put on.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not that suddenly these people became less bankable.
No.
It's because the regulators and the government decided to change the bar.
And we should explain to everybody, and you can explain to me too, being a mortgage lender yourself, the various AB private type of lenders and what they are and who goes to which.
Well, sure, and that's really the funny thing, because if you look at the current headlines today, it's like, oh, wow, the craziest thing has happened. Housing purchases are down. Joe, you've got a graphic that comes up and says that the number of insured mortgages is at an all-time low. It's dropped dramatically.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. So the point is that...
On our nice new 80-inch screen.
Yeah, exactly. But the funny thing is, it's like the headlines are like, where's this from? This is shocking. There must be a problem. What's all of a sudden happened? And it's like, come on, guys.
Was created.
Come on, guys. This is totally manufactured. This is if you hit it hard enough and it doesn't do what you want, hit it with a bigger hammer. Hit it with a bigger hammer, and that's exactly what's happening. So you want to talk about the different types of lenders? Yes, absolutely. The regular financial institutions that you see in every street corner, those are the big six, if you will. They were the one that average citizen like you and me would go in. Yeah, well, I deserve the best, and therefore I should go.
And they've
there
had the tightest constraints put upon them by government. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when you don't qualify there, though, there are other institutions.
Yeah, there's other options, but those options,
I
as
don't
you
worry
go
about
down,
A, B, and C. I really don't worry about A, B, and C. Because at the end of the day, you're going to want to do business with the institution where you best qualify, where you are most suited.
Mind you, your short-term costs do increase as you go to the more the lender's willing to take the bigger risks.
If you want in, and you've decided that you're willing to pay a price and that price is worthwhile, and that's really where sitting and working with a licensed mortgage professional makes the sense. When I sit with my clients, we're not comparing John Smith to Mary Brown.
No.
Because there's no point in doing that comparison. What are you bringing to the table? Tell me about your life. Let's learn about your story. Are you employed or are you self-employed? Do you have great credit or do you have challenge credit? Do you have bruised credit? Are you recently divorced? Do you have a history? Is there anything that we need to know about? Fine. Guess what? We're not going to compare you to anybody else. Where are you? Where would you like to go? How can we make it work? And at the end of the day, we're going to find an institution that you will work with, that you'll find a synergy with. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to decide, does it work with my cash flow? Does it work with my personal constraints? What do I need to do to make it work? And if it's not ultimate, how do I grow? How do I take the next month, 3 months, 6 months, or a year to take myself from where I am to where I really want to be? And sometimes it's a two-step process.
And some people will have no choice but to make that step. But some people going with a private C lender could do it now and make that growth and make those changes while still owning a house. So we could buy today. There's a higher cost. Well, it was an interesting statistic.
Go ahead, Joe.
20% of home buyers are using private lenders now. Now that's an increase of 60%.
So let's take a look at this here.
Over
that's
2
an
years
increase
ago.
of 60%. But Joe, thanks for the graphic here. And it really says right here, if you look at that Q1 of 2018, I mean, look at that massive drop.
Yeah.
All right, it's a massive drop. Now, what is it? The government is saying we're concerned that consumer and household spending is out of control.
Yeah.
We're concerned that people are spending $1.61 for every dollar that they earn.
Yeah.
But what we're not talking about, and really where this graphic's not misleading. This graphic is actual fact. This is what's happened.
Yeah.
Why? What's the catalyst? Instead of addressing, and again, this is something I've been talking about for a year at least, is instead of addressing the bad debt, we all know, we've all heard in high school, good debt versus bad debt.
Yes.
Instead of addressing the payday loan companies, the guys who you can pre-advance your check cashing and all that kind of stuff, or the don't pay a cent event that if you don't pay by the deadline in 6 months from now, all of a sudden you're going from 0% interest to 32% interest, and it's totally compounded from day one. That's the debt that they should be going after. And yes, banks and current regulations have allowed people to roll their former mistakes and use their house as an ATM and cash out and take care of the problem. You're not taking care of the problem.
No.
You're just extending the 1-year problem into a 30-year problem.
But you're also creating a new problem because you're taking new buyers who otherwise 2 years ago may have qualified for that lower cost financing with an A lender. They're now having to go to a sale. They have to live somewhere.
Yeah, so let's talk about the private lenders. Yeah.
So they're going to the private lenders, and the number who is up 60%. So a government who thought, well, we've got to deal with personal debt, is now forcing a whole generation of people into the C market, the private lender market.
We got 1 minute,
interest
Mike.
rates.
We got 1 minute. Let's just nail this really quickly. The government decides to make a shift, and it's not a well thought out shift, and it certainly is lacking in all sorts of things. But do you think consumer habits are going to change overnight as well? Do you think people all of a sudden who are brand new newlyweds or looking to downsize or whatever, maybe enter a new phase of life, do you think they're suddenly going to say, well, I'm no longer going to buy a home?
No.
They're going to look for the
people still have
for the path of least resistance. Are going to look to the institutions who are willing to help them. And the fact of the matter, what I was saying is, there's A lenders or the institutionals. There's the alternative lenders. There's the private lenders. There's the mortgage investment corporations, and they all follow slightly different rules and regulations. And that's what's important. Is that is sorry, Joe? Can you bring that back? That is totally a misleading article. This. You want to buy a mortgage, private lenders rising. I mean, it sounds like it's clandestine. It sounds like it's back alley, as you talked about.
Because someone's going to a private lender, they're not looking to do this for the next 25 years. It's a way for them to deal with things in the short term, and they'll do a 2-year term, they'll do a 3-year term with that C lender, get their self in order, hope for some changes within our government and our financial regulations, and then when they renew, hopefully we're back on track.
Into that. So when we come back from the break, Mike, let's go into that. And let's go into where the opportunities are in the next segment. And I think this flows really quite nicely, and we'll be back in just a moment. Thanks.
Welcome back to Hitting Home with Mike Montague, Arif Khan, and we were talking about where the money's coming from these days, but I also want to talk a little bit about investment, and specifically within Barrie and the Simcoe County region. As a realtor, I'm seeing there's still, I had a phone call this morning from somebody from the GTA, wants to buy land in Innisfil, is looking towards the future growth there, and wants to hedge his bets on picking up some raw land there that he feels is going to be developed. And there's also those who are investing in homes. And a lot more people are feeling more confident about buying housing to rent out. And there's good reason for that, because yes, our prices for homes have gone up, so it costs a little more to get in the door. But with that, we've also seen rental rates go up tremendously, because a higher number of people are being held out of the purchase market and are staying in the rental market. The demand has gone up. This is driving rental rates up. So from someone who wants to be a landlord's perspective, this is opportunity. You're going to have long-term tenants in all likelihood, and you're also going to be able to command better rents than you would have.
So let me be devil's advocate. All right, nobody in their right mind wants to be a landlord. Nobody does. But I think what people want
People want to retire
is the
comfortably,
opportunity
though.
that being a landlord could give.
I don't want to spend my Sunday changing out a toilet or dealing with.
But you made a good point the other day when we were just chatting.
But nothing comes without a cost, and I'm sorry. The people who are brave and bold enough who go in there and they realize this isn't so bad, and they get in, they do it, and then they repeat it. Next thing you know, they've got a portfolio of homes. They start that in their 30s or 40s. By the time they're 65 years old, they're set.
So that's the point. You made a point the other day with me when we were just chatting, and you said, you know what, all the greatest wealth in the world has come out of real estate. It really has.
Yeah.
The stock market's not going to do it for the, I
hate
using the term average person.
Yeah, it's volatile.
But if you're going to a job 8 hours a day or 40 hours a week or whatever, you're not watching the ticker. You cannot be as responsive as the person.
Well, you have to be in the moment watching the stock market. Camel breaks wind in Saudi Arabia and world oil prices drop. And that's the fact for the stock market. You've got to be watching it minute by minute. Whereas your home, you set it up, you're in there for the longer term. And over time, traditionally, housing prices have always gone up, and they will continue to go up. So the nutshell
is that if you're willing, if you're here wondering, how am I ever going to make it because my TFSA or my RSP is never going to give me, at the rate that I'm putting into it through my matching contributions or whatever it is never actually going to give me financial freedom, is never actually going to give me a quality of life that I actually dream about and aspire about.
It's part of the balance you should try to achieve.
If you're willing to do something different, then you can have different results. But if you need instant gratification, if you need to have the big screen TV now, if you're not willing to adjust your habits and live within your means, or plan this investment phase into your routine and your habits, if you're not willing to do those things, then don't expect it. But if you are, then maybe you say, well, being landlord's maybe not that bad of an idea.
It's not that bad. And it's part of, and it's not an either or, because you should have the RSPs and the other investments. You should have a balanced portfolio.
So the prices are high. The prices are high.
Prices are high, but they're not going to drop by half.
I still want to be a landlord?
Yes, because I think it's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. He says, land is the best investment because they're not building anymore.
Right.
And it's true. If you're in the stock market, when the price hits a ridiculous height, what do? They split and they double the number of stocks. So they're forever diluting and increasing. Whereas real estate, there's always a certain amount, and in many indications, the amount of usable land will depreciate over time.
Hence, multi-unit residential, high-rise, et cetera. You can create more livable space, but you can't necessarily create more land.
And a lot more of our land is becoming protected and uninhabitable over time.
But if the government regulations have made it much more difficult to qualify and less people are able to get into the marketplace, that's putting backward pressure, as you said, into the rental supply or into the rental market. Now all of a sudden it's an opportunity for anybody who's got that magic word in their life, because if in the last 5 years you've owned a home, theoretically you've doubled your equity.
Yeah.
And if you can qualify, if you can focus your habits and be self-disciplined, and you can put yourself in a position where you can qualify to draw equity out of your home. Just because you have equity doesn't mean the bank will give it to you.
No.
But if you can qualify to get the equity, and you can put that down on another investment property, and by the way, banks will like that because they're still getting the collateral, they're still getting the security. And now you've got rental supply. What's happening in the marketplace when you've got less than 2% vacancy? The rents are going to go up as well. So the house prices have gone up. The rents have gone up. Yes, there's somebody out there, I can hear them now saying, the greedy landlord story about how am I supposed to be able to afford those rents.
Yeah.
The reality is there's a willing buyer.
landlord has to cover their costs, bottom line.
And
there are greedy landlords too.
But there is a marketplace though.
But and there's those who will brush it off immediately and saying, well, yeah, that was great for my parents' generation when they could buy a house for a quarter of the price they can today. Well, if it's 4 times more expensive to buy a house now, and yet the rents are 4 times more, then bring 3 friends on board. And then form yourself a group with the right people and get 4 of you going out there. The impact
by the way,
is
get
the
a
same
lawyer.
for you. And get a lawyer. And get
Don't
a good
do it
team
on a
together.
handshake.
And,
I hate
and
to
this
say
is
it.
something we...
My dad did everything on a handshake. Your dad maybe did everything on a handshake. No?
And in this season's show, just a forewarning, we will talk more and more about investment in that. And,
this is not
some of the details.
We'll do more than 9 minutes.
It's not going to become a how-to show per se, but any good information we have that we can share going forward, we're definitely going to be presenting here on this show, and our guests will reflect that as well too.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the smart money really is, though, that as it gets more difficult, as those graphics do ring true, because that's data, that's not opinion. Well, the one was opinion, but the graph is actually data. The fact of the matter is that there are some people who are going to sell.
Yes.
There are some people who are going to have marital distress in their life. There are some people where they're going to be estate sales, someone's passing on, and the younger generation's not able to
or people's housing needs change.
There's going to be the motivated seller.
Yes.
And that's really when you and I and people who've got equity want to listen. They're a motivated seller, which means they want to get rid of the property. They want to dump the property.
Yep.
Are you ready to pick that up? It's not about I feel bad about doing it or I feel good about doing it. Are you there? Are you ready to pick it up? There's an opportunity for you.
And to sum it up, if you look at the last 10 years of real estate, it's been easy. Anybody with half a brain could buy a house, wait a year or two, sell it, and make a profit on it. Now it requires a little bit of savvy, a little bit of calculated risk. And that's strengthening the herd, though, because those who are still willing to go forward are spending a little more time in preparing themselves. And it's a lot more of a professional game now, once again.
It is.
So
be prepared and plan ahead. You don't want to be doing this last minute. This isn't something just to come up with, hey, I've got a great idea, let's go do it. You do want to sit and speak with a licensed realtor. You do want to speak with a licensed mortgage professional. Come in long before you've got an offer on the table and let's talk about it. But Mike, for those who are just catching on to the show and just seeing that this is a great topic of interest, but they haven't had an opportunity to really explore what else we've been talking about. We've had a podcast. We've also got an archive and a library of all of our shows from last season on Rogers.
I think 23, 24 shows in the archive from last year. And if you want to watch any of our past episodes, and as we add to the archive as it grows through this season, you can go to
how about hittinghome.ca?
Yeah, I've got it written down. I'm just trying to find in my scribbly notes here. Hittinghome.ca. You will see the archives, and I believe also the archives.
We've got access to the podcast, so we're on.
And our podcast. This is great.
We had a lot of fun with that.
We're syndicated nationally with the podcast.
We're keeping up with Howard Stern.
Well, we're giving him a run for his money, and we're
on TuneIn Radio,
iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts,
Podbean. I've never heard of it.
Podbean, yeah, which is the host of the actual podcast itself. But you can just go on to Google and search out Hitting Home with Mike and Arif, and it'll come up all the places you can go and listen to all these podcasts. They're quick. You can listen to them into the car, listen to them wherever you want.
And we want to hear from you. We definitely want to hear from you. We want to get your feedback. We want to hear what you want to talk about. We're out of time. We're totally out of time. But go check us out on the podcast or whatever it is, or hittinghome.ca. Thanks again to Rogers. Thanks, Joe Miller.
Tune in too.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you in a week.